Hello and welcome to another episode of Industry Disruptors. My name's Ajay Naya and I'm joined again by Jordan Wiley, MBE. Thank you for joining me, Jordan.
You're welcome.
Today we're going to be talking about title splits, a very, very popular, what's it called? Topic, that's the one. A popular topic amongst property investors at the moment, and a very, very yeah. strategy. Title splits. I mean, I do shitloads. How many have you done so far?
Almost shitloads.
Almost shitloads, yeah.
Doing more and more, actually.
Brilliant strategy. I mean, some of these deals that are coming across my desk, I'm absolutely blown away by. In awe of some of the investors. And I think one of the best parts is that some of the investors are not necessarily large portfolio landlords, but they kind of started with title splits day one, and have done amazing. I mean, one particular client, obviously, that I'm doing a few for now. Brilliant deals. I mean,
is that the one with the all money out?
Yeah. And we did exactly the same thing last year with one round the corner. Yeah. I mean, just blown away by the, I guess the intuitive nature of how to spot the right type of deal, because you see title splits where it's kind of, that's a pointless title split. Really, you shouldn't really title split it. You just keep it as a multi-unit freehold block. But I think with this guy, it's incredible. And then I've got a few clients who've done great ones. The ground up one. Well, no, it wasn't really a ground up. It was more of a conversion. With the 6 that we ended up taking to Kent Reliance.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, incredible.
Well, the title split that I've got on my desk at the moment, the 36.
Oh, 36,
I mean, that's
if lenders understand what title splits are.
Yeah, exactly. But it's essentially a high street. Just your local high street.
Splitting the whole high street.
Buying the high street, and then he's going to split all 36 titles. But I mean, by doing that, he's making 1.8 million.
Yeah, just by splitting.
Just by splitting titles, no works, no nothing.
It's an incredible strategy, and I think a lot of people get scared by it. But really, you're not doing much. It's kind of the solicitors that do it, and obviously we've got Mike, who does amazing. I mean, the guy's a genius when it comes to title splits. Yeah, solicitor. But I think from the outset, it's about structuring the deal correctly.
Because that's the main part of title splitting. It's easy when you've got the structure right and you've got the right people on your side. If you mess it up, it gets a bit sticky.
Well, there's only 2 reasons why it would be messed up. One is the accountant hasn't got a clue and is doing it the wrong way, or 2, the client just doesn't know. Because I've seen a couple come to me where they're trying to title split to themselves, and of course you can't do that. It has to be split into a separate legal entity, and obviously to benefit from tax, benefit from tax and stamp really. It's got to be in a corporate structure. So I think having that education on holding company, subsidiary company, creating leases into the subsidiary, I think is really, really important. And I think where the masses may not get it, I think accountants mainly, right?
Accountants like to do it the opposite way round, I found.
Well, not only because they're like, it's easier to move the freehold than it is to move the leases. And it's like, well, no, because it doesn't work for lending.
Yeah.
Right? Because it just doesn't work.
Because they're not brokers, so they don't know the lender.
Yeah, but then they'll also, I think there's a couple of times where they'll basically strategize with the client from a tax perspective, not realizing that actually, do you know what, the lending's more important than what you have to say.
Yeah, well, otherwise you can't do the deal.
No. And I think having accountants on side and having them understand, obviously we work with a few accountants that really know what they're doing, including Hearthstone accountants.
Obviously, very good accountant.
Nice little plug there. But yeah, if you're working with the right accountant, I think before making the decision, investors need to speak to a mortgage advisor first.
Yeah.
Because I think without having that conversation with a mortgage advisor. They're going to listen to what the accountant has to say and potentially fuck up the entire deal.
Yeah.
And have to start
I've
again.
seen it happen.
Have you?
Yeah. Where they've done it upside down.
Oh, they've bought it.
Or they've come to me too late, so they've already bought it in an entity. Yeah. And then we're not realising they can't split themselves.
So they've got to create another subsidiary underneath.
Yeah, which just then costs them more money, and it's just more hassle, and it's just like, if you would have just come to me first, then...
I think this comes back to people not realising actually how important a cog we are in the process. The stigma around estate agents, mortgage advisors, and, you know, your one-man band mortgage advisors, and obviously the specialist mortgage advisors such as ourselves, where it's almost that stigma around the fact that we're unnecessary. Oh, we can just go directly to bank. Okay, great, figure it out.
But they don't. If you don't know what you're doing, going directly to the bank is either you're just going to end up with loads of declines, or you're going to end up just wasting money on valuations or lender app fees because you don't know what you're doing, and you haven't structured the deal correctly for the lender, and you don't know the lender's criteria, because that's our job. I've also seen that happen.
Yeah, I mean, there's a timing to it, right? For me, I always tell my clients, speak to me before you speak to anyone else, right? Because as an investor, in my opinion, because I'm an investor as well, and what's always been the most important thing for me as an investor, what is the most important part of this whole process? And for me, that's lending.
Yeah.
Because if I can't leverage on that, I'm basically out of cash. If I can't build the portfolio that I want to build, the only way it's not possible is because of that lending.
Yeah.
And people just, one, they think they know everything. And it's, you know, there's nothing wrong with not knowing everything. Like there's nothing wrong with asking advice. I think it's really important to ask that advice. But I think also almost like the waterfall in which who you approach and who you ask what to. So for me, it was always, right, let me figure out what the situation is with lending first. 2, based on that lending, let me figure out the structure of that company. And 3, on that structure of that company, how do I get this deal done entry, and how do I get this deal done exit? Which way is the best way to go?
Although we should probably say, because there might be people watching this that haven't got a clue what title splitting is.
Okay.
And I feel we've just talked about it, and they might be...
Well, I want to say 4, the solicitors, very, very important. Because
the solicitors have to know what they're doing.
The actual creating of that lease
because
is so
we've
essential.
had solicitors that have said that title splitting is illegal. Do you remember that? Halt. It's illegal.
No, don't you remember the lender, the underwriter who said to me, no, I'm declining this case?
Yeah, because I don't understand it.
Because the client took one property out of 10 units. It was one entire title, and there were 10 units in that title, and the client purchased one of those units, created a new title on purchase, put it into his own entity, then turned that title into 3 flats, and then title split those 3 flats, and the underwriter was like, no, I'm declining it.
Yeah, I don't get it.
I ended up spending 45 minutes on the phone to an underwriter. This is an underwriter of a lender, telling that underwriter the exact process. Well, how is that even possible?
He needed a podcast. He needed to watch the podcast.
How is it possible to do that? How?
And he was like mind blown by the end of it.
Oh yeah, but you know, if the property was worth this much, and then how is it worth this much now? It's like, because the surveyor said so. Yeah, but how was that even possible? Because he changed the entire. It was a semi-commercial, so it was 2 flats and a shop downstairs, and he changed the whole thing into 3 flats. And it's like, how is that not possible? But anyway, phenomenal deal as well.
It was a great deal. I remember it.
That guy is now one of my letting agents.
He is.
He's one of my...
And he's a brilliant letting agent. And he's a letting agent for my clients.
Yeah. So he owns a letting agency as well as being an investor. And he's taken on 2 of my properties.
He's very good.
He's phenomenal.
He's very good.
Really, really good.
So yeah.
But yeah.
Please hold.
Please hold. Hold
so, in a nutshell, title splitting is when you've got, say, either a multi-unit freehold block, so like a block of flats, or it might be a semi-commercial unit, and you split each title. So you either split say you've got a block of 4 flats, for example, you would take each flat, create a lease for each flat, and then it would become 4 leasehold flats, so 4 just individual flats. You can also do it with semi-commercial. You could split the title and have a residential and a shop as a commercial. And then when we talk about corporate structures, when we say that, we mean the actual structure of your SPV. So you would essentially buy it in a holding company, which is here, which was where the freehold sits, and then you would have a subsidiary that sits under that, and that's where you would create the lease into. Perfectly explained.
Good. Yeah, it's not bad.
It's almost like I know what I'm talking about.
It's almost like you were taught amazingly.
Must have had a great mentor.
I know. What's his name?
Oh, I don't know. Some Ajay something. I don't know. Don't know if you've heard of him.
No, I've never heard of him. No idea who he is. Very good explanation. Yeah, I'll go with that.
You're welcome.
So yeah, obviously Jordan's now explained what a title split is and the very basics of how to go about it. Obviously, there are very, very intricate ways of doing title splits. There are very simple ways of doing title splits, but that essentially hits a nail on the head with how a general kind of way of title splitting is.
And I'd say that probably the main points to take from it is you can't split a title to yourself.
Yeah, so if you own it in your personal name, you can't split that title into 2 if you own it.
So it always has to go into another entity.
And the reason a lot of people say, I've got a limited company and I've got me. If I own it, I can split one into the limited company. Yes, you can, but you're selling it, so you'll have to pay stamp duty on that again. Even though you paid stamp duty on it when you bought it in the first place. The other one I've seen is it's in a limited company. Why can't I just set up a brand new limited company and just split it into that? Yeah. Same thing. It's moving from one entity to the other. Therefore, you've got to pay stamp duty on that, and you've got to pay corporation tax on the profit from that company to this company.
But if the SPVs are connected, so a holding company and subsidiary, then there is no stamp duty. So that's the reason why you would set up a holding company and a subsidiary and title split that way, because when you create the leases into the subsidiary, you're not going to pay any stamp duty because they're connected.
Yeah, so it's because it's basically, and hence the corporate structure. It's within the same corporate entity. It's a company owned by another company. So that lease that is then created into the subsidiary company, there's no corporation tax on the profit that the holding company is making because it's within the same corporate structure. There's no stamp duty either because of the fact that it's within the same corporate structure, and there's no moving to a different entity outside of that structure.
And that also allows you to expand your corporate structure. So you could essentially have a one holding company and 3 subsidiaries under it. So you could have a one where you flip, one where you hold, one that you do a holiday lets in or whatever it is, and you could move them between each one without paying any stamp duty. So sometimes it happens when I see it a lot where someone buys something on a bridge and they intend to keep it as an investment, but then they realize actually I'm going to flip it, so they move it over into the flip company and flip it in there.
And vice versa. If you think it's going to be a flip and it's in a flip company and you think, actually, do you know what? I'm going to hold on to this and keep it because it's a great buy-to-let, and they just move it into the buy-to-let company. And there's, again, no stamp duty and no corporation tax because it's within the same corporate structure.
And I've had clients, though, I find that they get a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Cautious when it comes to corporate structures, because
nervous.
Because anxious. They're worried that if they keep setting up companies, they've got to thesaurus. they have to pay the more accountancy fees. It becomes a little bit bigger, but you have to realise that if you're keeping a buy-to-let and you have an investment company, then it's an investment company. If you're flipping or if you've got developments, you've got a holiday let, it's a trading business, and you want to keep that separate for lending because it just makes everything clean. When it comes to lending, you need to just keep everything clean because it will make your life easier.
Yeah, not only that, VAT is another thing that comes into it. And also, some lenders, if it's not a true SPV, i.e. for investments only, for buy-to-let properties only, they won't lend.
And a lot of lenders don't like it when you have commercial properties in with your buy-to-lets.
I think honestly, what's ringing in my ear right now is accountants screaming and shouting and effing and blinding right now, because they're like, oh, what? It's just like, hold the phone, chill.
Yeah.
Because yes, there are very intricate ways of doing things, and there are a lot of ramifications around what we're talking about. We're talking about a very basic way of doing the title splits and getting the lending and making sure it's right. There are also probably some accounting screaming that we're wrong, and I'll just say, well,
we're not.
You're not right. Sorry.
End of.
Yeah, simple as, because I've done about 200, 300 of these deals, and every single time it's worked perfectly. And I work with accountants who understand it, and I work with lenders who understand it. So do one. Basically.
Yeah, that's clear.
Yeah, simple as that. But yeah, I think the question the question that begs to be answered: why title split?
To add value, mainly.
Absolutely. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Value of a block, let's say it's 4 flats, could be £200,000, but maybe individually, if you sold one of those flats, it will sell for £75,000 or be worth at £75,000. So really, the value of that block is £300,000. If it's all one freehold title with 4 properties, 4 flats, it's valued at £200,000. If you split them out, it's valued at £300,000. You've added £100,000 to the value of that property by creating those leases. Lease creations usually, for the master lease being done as a grand or two, and then each individual lease is a few £100. So it's not extortionate to get it done.
Well, it's worth it if you're going to add £100,000.
It's absolutely worth paying that kind of money for the increase in value. So that's essentially the most important part as to why people title split. But again, also if it's a semi-commercial, separating them out, you're putting the commercial into a commercial company, you're putting the residentials into your residential company. You may want to sell one.
I was just literally about to say that they might want to sell the commercial aspect.
I've got a client right now who's done it. He's created 3 flats. He's selling one of the flats and he's keeping 2 of the flats. And the reason he's doing that is because he wants to pull out as much money as possible. To be fair, it's money in, money out by just remortgaging all 3, but he wants to pull out additional funds to go do it again. And I think that's quite intelligent. And I think a lot of people get very hung up on, well, I've created these, I want to keep all of them. Selling 1 off or 2 off, depending on how many you're actually creating, I think is really important, because it gives you that extra capital to go and do it again.
I find it rarely works.
Or bigger deals.
It rarely works with semi-commercial, more so in the north, because the commercial unit just isn't worth enough standalone to get decent enough lending. So usually the ones that I've done with the semi-commercial, they do keep them on one title. And then you also have to think about, well, if I split the resi side of it, then I've got a resi that is, maybe an above commercial. So yeah, there are times when it does work, but it just is a little bit more tricky.
So some of my clients, or one in particular I'm thinking of right now, where I'm doing a title split for him, he's got 2 flats upstairs and 1 shop downstairs. And what he's doing, the refinance of those 2 flats actually cover the entire cost he paid for the property. So he's keeping the commercial unencumbered and he's mortgaging the 2 flats. Sorry, there are 3 flats. He's keeping one of the flats and the commercial unencumbered, and he's remortgaging the other 2 flats, and that covers the entire purchase price. And so in that kind of situation, like, it's a no-brainer. There is a possibility we can take that 3rd flat to a different lender as well. And essentially we're about finding out what we can do with these 2. If these 2 go through fine, which I think they will, then we've got no problem, because we've got that situation where the lender that we're using for the 2 flats, because it's not directly above commercial, i.e. there's another flat in between, they'll take those 2 and they won't take this one. And because they have the most, I guess, positive deal, we'll call it that, it works out to be an amazing deal, because the purchase price was so low in comparison to what the split value is.
But you can also create it yourself, right? You could just buy a massive big house, freehold house, and then turn it into 2-3 flats and do it yourself as well. You don't have to buy a multi-unit freehold
One of my
block.
neighbours, well, now not my neighbour, but my parents' neighbour back in the day, they did that, and they basically split their house into 5 flats. They kept the one flat on the top, which was kind of like
a big ass house.
Oh no, it is big houses. So they kept the top flat for themselves, which was essentially the penthouse, even though it's like a 2-story house. They changed it into 3 stories, converted the loft, and that entire upstairs was 1 flat, and then they had 4 flats. And they rented out the 4 flats, kept the top one. I don't even know why they kept the top one, because no one's really ever there, because they moved elsewhere. But the value of that, I couldn't believe it. So I think the house was worth somewhere in the region of about 2 million. And each flat was worth 850. I think the top one was actually worth 1 million, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly. But I mean, that in itself, you're talking 3.4 million for the 4 flats. And then another
Do you just do that maths quickly in your head?
Yeah.
I was still counting. Calculator.
So 3.4 million plus the 4.4 from a £2 million house. So yeah, you can see the added value in that immediately. And to be honest, I think the cost of that conversion was somewhere in the region of about 600,000. So what they ended up I don't think there was even a mortgage on that property, but they ended up mortgaging 2 of the flats for 400 apiece, 800,000, basically to cover what they spent and give themselves an extra 200 grand to go elsewhere. Amazing deal. One of my friends, he's a estate agent.
He's friends with an estate agent. Got that on camera.
I grew up
friends with an estate agent. Trader.
I grew up with him. He used to live down my road. In fact, he lives opposite that house.
Okay.
Or used to. So he again lived on the same road, but he told me that he gets at least 2 or 3 clients per year who buy these larger houses, convert them into flats, and they make
It's a smart move.
And it's brilliant. And then, you'll get a lot of those haters who are like, oh, you dirty landlords, you dirty investors.
Standard.
I'm just like, bitch, someone needs to live somewhere. So you might as well create a house for them. We've got a housing shortage. If I'm turning one house into 5 flats, I've just created 5 homes for someone.
I came across this week. I mean, I've come across it before, but never in so much detail. It's not actually title splitting, but it's quite loosely related. Is Tyneside leases. Have you come across Tyneside leases? Because they are really confusing. So my client is buying the flat above a shop. It's already split.
Yeah.
And it's gone into legals, and it's got this Tyneside lease. So
is this in Tyneside by any chance?
Yeah. But it's really weird. So it's like it's all backwards. So like he's going to own the lease to the flat, but then the freeholder owns the shop.
Yeah, no.
And then and vice versa. So he'll own the freehold to the shop, but the shop holds the
freehold to the flat.
The leasehold to the and it's like, and the lender's gone like brain fart.
Are we allowed to name that lender?
No, they're fixing it. They're fixing the lease.
Oh, okay.
No, they've been great. They've said to me, look, we can't. It's Ascot Bridging, and they've been great, and they've said that we can't lend on it as it is, but let's work together to figure it out. Yeah. So they've gone back to the solicitors, and thankfully the client's solicitor is very, very good.
Okay.
Scary, but very, very good.
Scary.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very scary.
Okay.
But very good. And
solicitor scary.
Yeah, she's terrifying.
Oh wait, is this my mate?
No.
Oh, a different one.
This is the solicitor that, when I first worked with that client, accused me of like taking commission from another solicitor on dual rep. Do you remember it?
Oh, yeah.
So the client actually called me the other day and was like, I've had to have a word with her because she's causing the way that she talks to people.
Yeah.
But maybe she's getting shit done. That's what I like about her. She gets shit done. So they're sorting out the lease now because it was all like messed up from like way back in the day. But now it's almost fixed so that now Ascot can lend on it, which is brilliant because it's the beauty of having lenders that actually have some sort of common sense, right?
Do you know what? It's absolutely fitting that you say that, common sense, because there are so many lenders that just don't get it. They just don't get
and
it.
And if your criteria allows title splitting, your underwriter should know what it is.
It's not even just the underwriter should know what it is. It's a lot of the time the criteria has not been written correctly. And an underwriter will take a criteria verbatim. And if it doesn't fit how that criteria is written, for them it's just an automatic no. Or if they don't understand it.
But I tried that, right? So there's the lender that is not our favourite lender.
Oh, there's so many.
Like bottom of the list lender.
Oh, the bottom.
The bottom.
Yes. Yeah.
Like
I know
in the swamp.
Yeah.
Right, so their criteria clearly states that if the property is adjacent to commercial, they limit it to 65%, I think it was, loan to value. Okay. This commercial was 2 doors down.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, it's adjacent. I was like, no, it's not. Your criteria says if it is adjacent, it is not adjacent. Do you know the meaning of adjacent? They were like, yeah. And I was like, is it adjacent? They were like, no. So I was like, how are you limiting this to 65%? And they were like, well, it's nearby.
Oh.
And I was like, but it's not adjacent though, is it? So your criteria should say if it's nearby or within, I don't know, 200 metres or something.
Do you know, half the time...
They wouldn't budge on it
Half the time, I don't think lenders even understand their own criteria.
They don't.
And they'll just make things up. And I think...
Well, didn't you ask an underwriter just last week, why are you asking for that? And they were like, oh, I don't know.
That happens so often.
Yeah, I know, but it's only because it happened last week. It's fresh in the brain.
Where I literally... every time I question an underwriter as to... Oh, yes... They asked me the question and I said, look, I get that you're asking me the question. I'm fine with the question.
It's like a completion statement.
What I need to understand is what you're asking. Why are you asking this question? For what purpose? So that I know what you will need
so I can get you the right document.
Evidence of. Yeah. And she was like, oh, I don't know.
I don't really know.
I was just like, well, are you asking this question because of... you want to see trail of funds? Are you asking this question because you want to see a completion statement? Do you want to see bank statement? What do you want to see? Oh yeah, completion statement. I was like, so just tell me.
Just ask for the completion
just say,
statement.
Can I see the completion statement of that? Honestly, I was like, well, what is the purpose of this question? Like, you can't ask me a question without knowing why you're asking that question.
But they can, because it's written in front of them. You know, like when you get those scam calls.
Oh my God, yeah. Are you happy with the providings we are providing?
Yeah, that one. You're in the wrong job, mate.
What do you mean?
Should be working in a call centre.
Me?
With that, yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Wasted. Talent wasted.
Totally.
So yeah, that's about it, isn't it?
I think that is it, yeah. Title splits. I mean, the conversation can go on for ages and ages, but I think...
Yeah, they can be simple.
For the basics.
You know, you just simple title split, you buy a block of 2 flats and split them into 2, or it can get as complex as the one that you said, where you're taking one freehold out and then creating leases within that. So you can basically do whatever, but you need to speak to us first.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say do not go to the solicitor or the accountant first. Speak to us first about the lending. Once the lending is sorted, then you go to the accountant with, we need to do this. And then let your advisor have a conversation with your solicitor and your accountant so that everyone is on the same page and they understand what's going on and what needs to be done for the lending, because obviously the lending is more important. You can't do the if you don't need lending, then okay, don't worry about it. But if you need lending, then make sure that you do it in the right way. But yeah, thank you very much. Any questions, of course, always put them in the comments.
I'm sure there'll be loads of questions.
Yeah, and
it's very overwhelming.
I would say there's never a question that is stupid, because it's not the most simple of processes. So always make sure that you ask questions. And you know, if you are one of those that are a little bit shy, you can always pop us an email or go onto our website and pop a message on the website asking any questions so that we can answer them for you. But yes, thank you very much once again for joining us on Industry Disruptors. I'm Ajay Nair. This is Jordan Wiley.
MBA. Sometimes you introduce me as MB and sometimes you don't.
Sorry, I apologise.
Where's the consistency, guys?
Ajay Nair, Jordan Wiley, MBE. And
we'll see you next time.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be great. Make sure that you subscribe and click the bell thing for the notifications. I don't even understand how to do it properly myself. I should really learn. But I'm sure you probably have a better idea than I do. So yeah, thank you very much and see you next time.